Okay, thank you everyone for being here today. This is David Marcarian, the inventor of the MyoVision, and I'm here to talk to you about the EP stress score. It's a kind of a cool way of looking at static surface EMG. It makes it extremely simple to understand. I'm going to go through it relatively quickly. If you have any questions, you can ask. It stands for electrophysiological stress score. So where did this come from? First of all, I'm going to cover what we're going to discuss. We're going to talk about the research support studies that are used to support its use, the concept of gathering baseline data on the patient, how it has improved reproducibility significantly due to the fact that we perform our tests in the proper standing posture. It leads to difficulties with reading some of the tests. We're going to go through some sample clinical exams, what's happened with real patients, where and when to use it, and new features and how to upgrade. So you all have seen this video. It's the mechanic showing how he's using muscle testing to determine what may be wrong with the car. And the audio doesn't come through so well, but it's a great video, and it explains. He's basically saying it's not how we do things here. So the point here is that we don't really want to look like this, so we want to use data. And even mechanics these days have changed their whole process. This is currently, I went to see my mechanic for, as you know, race cars. This is really interesting. I go in to have an alignment done using the exact same terminology as we are in the chiropractic arena. And this guy is scheduling 2 months out now for an alignment due to the fact that he's using data. You walk in, he actually gives you this graphic showing the wheel alignment and then he actually shows after you're done what it looks like and provides the information. This is what it says on their computer, making the adjustments. Unbelievable, but it's why we want to use data ourselves, is that our entire society's gotten data-driven. And what I did with the EP stress score is try to simplify it. So where did it come from? First of all, we're looking at surface EMG. Now, what does it do? I just want to make sure we emphasize this. We're measuring levels of muscle activity. It's not temperature. We're looking at, just like an EKG, the same technology. We're looking at the summation of depolarizations in the area we place the electrodes. So we're measuring that millionth of a volt signal generated when muscles contract. So think of it as a muscular compensation for subluxation. That's what we're looking at. It's a form. You can think of it as being a form of palpation in a way. So we touch down the electrodes to the skin, get a quick reading, and move on. As you can see, one of the advantages of the new software is the test is performed about 3 times faster. So again, we want to look at it as electronic form of palpation. This is always when anyone asks. It's just like you ask the question, is it okay to palpate? Of course it is. But this is an electronic form of palpation. So we can see more reliable data, better inter-examiner reliability. We can also see a difference between high readings and low, which is contracture versus contraction. Now, the EP stress score, electrophysiological stress score, is very simple. All it is a sum. You add up all the muscle activity in microvolts, and it gives you the sum value. Now, here's an example. Instead of looking at just the bars alone, now we have a simple single number that tells you the sum level of muscle tension. And this came out of a study which I'll cover, which was really pretty fascinating. But this is an example of a pre- and post-adjustment scan. Now, this is kind of obvious because it's pre and post, but look at the difference in readings, 253 to 108. It makes it very simple for the patient to understand what's going on with them, and it's very easy for you to understand also because you can see the changes. Now, we typically don't do pre- and post-adjustment tests, obviously, but the study that was done was a major study at the VA hospital where this brilliant researcher started recognizing that, wow, the static EMG is extremely valuable. It correlates very highly with the VAS scores, so the subjective objective. And this is what they found. They did a 3-month study, and it was a control group study. It was 30 per group. And they found that those that responded to care, their VAS score went from 6 to 1, and their EP stress score, the sum of all their activity, went from 542 to 180. Now, in the non-responders, those that did not respond to care, the VAS score went from 6.6 to 6.8, didn't really change, and their actual microvolt levels, the sum, the EP stress score, went from 884 to 709. So this proved that the device could be used as an objective means of tracking progress, and that's what we're doing with it. And by the way, this is a group of MDs that work with chiropractors, and this was a very well done study. They did utilize the MyoVision in the study, and you can see there was 60 people involved in it. There was 30 in each group. So I want you to just think of this. Think of how we use blood pressure when we're looking at the heart. Think of the EP stress score as the same thing for the spine. So we're looking at a single number, and we can then track their progress. And as you know, as blood pressure goes up and down over time based on what's going on, you'll see this change too. But the key is that we're looking at the changes that occur to track progress once they come in to see you, initial visit, and then over time. So, and the other thing to point out here, which is really important, the standing static test is critical for clinical significance. This was established finally in a research study published where they looked back at all the studies, and there really was no validity to a seated EMG test. And the reason is simply that you're performing the test in the seated posture, which is measuring essentially an ergonomic study of the chair. So when we do a standing test, you're seeing how muscles compensate for subluxation. It's more of a stress test because the patient has to stand on their own. So what happens to reproducibility, though, this is the amazing part. People have been arguing for years over well, look, the readings are higher on one side in this test and the other side in the other test, and that means there's no reproducibility to it. Well, what's come out of the use of the EP stress score, this is in millionths of a volt, is that this isn't necessarily true. It's just that because they're standing, there's going to be some sway. We could seat them, which would give us no clinical information, but would be very reproducible. But we'd rather see the actual significant information, and that's why we stand them. But you can see this particular person, we did a pre and post, and you can see it switched sides, but it switched sides by about the same amount. This is 70 millionths of a volt versus 73 millionths of a volt. 3 millionths of a volt difference between these two tests. Very common thing to see now, and it really helps with reproducibility because it removes sway. This is an example of someone who challenged us, and we did this test in front of a group of, I think there was 100 people. You can see 244 was the pre, and the post was 254. That's 10 millionths of a volt difference pre and post. Even though the activity shifted sides, the sum was the same. So it kind of makes it a great way to track progress simply. So the key thing here is we're going to look at them as a baseline measurement and see where they change over the time. You do want to take into account the actual readings too. When you see super high readings and super low readings, that's significant. This area is an area of concern. Where it's super low, that's also an area of concern. This is an example of an individual with herniated disc in the low back, and muscles are in a fatigue state. So when they come in and see you when they're in a fatigue state, the readings will go up after you do your first exam, and you go to re-exam, you'll see an increase in activity with the EP stress score. There's only those two conditions you're going to see. So let's look at the baseline concept. The key is, just like blood pressure, we're going to track progress over time. This is an actual patient. They start at 175. Here they are 8 weeks later. Now, again, you can look at all the readings, but see the changes. This might even look worse to you at first. It's dropped somewhat, and here we are at 5 months. It's dropped to 88. This is actually real. This is out of one of the databases looking backwards. The person that actually purchased the eScan with EP stress score, they pulled up their old tests, and this is what they found. Now you'll see the second condition. So that's our first condition, is you'll see a high reading when they come in. That means they're in a more of an acute phase. And then you'll see the ones that are actually in a chronic state. And in general, you'll see lower readings. This one isn't quite the chronic that I was looking for, but it's an example of it. You can see the readings started at 206. At 10 weeks, they start firing more normally, which is an increase to 316. And here they are at 6 months. They've dropped by about 30%. Over time. So the concept here is, again, baseline, and this is the fatigue state, starting with fatigue state, and then again over time. To show you some cool things, though, just to point out the value of the graphs themselves, you can see when you see very high readings in the upper thoracic, it typically is a head forward position, common use with a laptop for ergonomics. Let them know to get their monitors up higher when they work, and not to work on a laptop the way they do, and be their hero by reminding them of how important it is to use proper ergonomics. Laptops are becoming the real killer these days. You know, they put them in their lap and they're looking down all the time. Also, the same thing occurs with smartphones. This is another example. Common thing I've been seeing is people with TMJ problems have very high readings in their upper cervical. So when you see this high tension on both sides of the neck, very common thing to ask them about TMJ, and then you can discuss with them when they go, wow, I do grind my teeth, or I do have TMJ problems. You can discuss the possibility of dealing with that. So just pointing out a couple of examples here. Now, as far as the recommended use, you don't want to really use this at screenings. It's best in office for tracking patient progress. You can include in the e-scan sending image with the number. That can be very helpful for the patients. They can see their pre and post over time. You can do pre and post overlays and send them to them this way also. Avoid using in screenings only because it doesn't mean that much on its own. You really want to use it as a baseline and check them over time, just like you would blood pressure. A single blood pressure measurement doesn't mean that much per se. It might, but it might not. Use the same test for all. So if you're going to do full spine tests, make sure they're full spine. If you're going to do the quick screen test, make sure they're quick screen. Obviously, you can't mix the two different tests. They don't mean anything when you sum a test that's full spine versus just a few readings. One of the coolest things about this, and you know, when I invented the e-scan where you send the test to the patient via their smartphone, one of the coolest things that happened was the listening to patients and beta testing was amazing. The number of patients that said, number one, this is the coolest thing I've seen, and my chiropractor is cool, to the second thing being, now I can show my husband or wife or someone at home why I'm still seeing my chiropractor. This validation is just huge. It reduces stress for the patient. But what's more amazing about this is the fact that we forget that in the cash world, in our cash practices, we forget that they have people at home that are very skeptical about what chiropractic is. And this, I was shocked at how many people said, wow, the value of this and showing why I'm still here is important. This is for the cash patient or one who's converted after a PI injury or whatever reason they came in to see you. They want to still see you for health. It's really valuable. They also take this and they would post it on Facebook. They would show it to it's an electronic business card for you, but they would show it to their friends and family. They go to have dinner after seeing you and they pull it out and show their friends how cool their chiropractor is, and you can change this message to say whatever you want. Very cool features of eScan. Now, the new features in the software, a couple things in addition to the EP stress score. There's a whole bunch of new features, bunch of improvements even to eScan. But the graphics, obviously we have male-female graphics now, which are really cool. The scan times have been reduced. I changed the algorithm for auto-scan, so it's significantly faster. And the battery life's gone up like crazy. There's actually a setting to adjust. What it's doing is it's shutting off the devices when they're not being used. We started seeing that battery life was poor in individuals that were talking to their patients during the test. So what we do is shut it off, and you simply hit the buttons, turn it back on again. The little red bar at the bottom tells you that they need to be turned back on again. So there's various features like that. You can also change the color of this. You can alter the depth of color, and you can change it to black and white if you want to for those that still want to print these and save ink. So there's a lot of cool things. This also does, I want to point that out, it does save a ton of paper. We're guessing here, estimating that we're saving about 500,000 sheets of paper by those that are using eScan versus printing these out. So, and then nobody loses them. And one of the other advantages we found was that they receive these 3 different times, 3 reinforcements for your message. They get it on their smartphone, then they get it on an iPad, and they get it in their email at home. So that's one of the reasons I did use email. There's no app required for this. It's a very cool part of why this works so well. There are no apps. Now, for those, just to point this out, for those that are doing personal injury work too, we have a whole new thing I want you to know about where we actually show in these graphics. Attorneys are going crazy over this. You can bill it. We're getting significantly increase in reimbursement these days over the last actually 4 or 5 years now. It's been very good. It's approximately $250 a test, but the main thing is that we're changing this entire paradigm when it comes to personal injury. In the past, we relied upon range of motion, and this is just one example of a real case that went to court. The IME and the doctor, the chiropractor, both found the exact same values for range of motion, 52 degrees and flexion. But when we combine the graphed range of motion, which is the red area here, with the muscle activity, this is what I patented. You can see the patient bends into flexion. You can see that even though they have normal range of motion, they have muscle guarding. This led to a $300,000 settlement by just having this alone. If we just used range of motion, there was absolutely no way that this patient would have been taken care of. Now here's an example of a normal. Our left muscle activity is in blue, right's in red. A normal individual, when they bend forward, there's no guarding. When there's injury, there's guarding. This is an acute one. And we now have it so you can export the test to and it creates an interpretation report. You just simply select from drop-downs based on what you see. So for those that want that, you can actually ask for it. So how to get it? You can go to MyoVision.com, and there's a form on the website. And what will happen is that you fill out the form with your information and hit send. And what will happen is you'll be contacted with the cost for the software. It's really based on how long you've had it, and so everyone's cost is going to be slightly different. You can actually see more information on it on the website, or go to store.myovision.com for that information. So if we go, let me show you where this is. We go to myovision.com. You can see right on the main page, all you have to do is click on upgrade to EP stress score and eScan. Click this link and it takes you to a form you fill out. Simply put your information in and you'll be contacted via email as far as the actual cost for the software. You can also go to the store, and you can see the store has the software located here too, and you have the EP stress score one. If you are a new owner, simply click this, fill the information in, and you'll get a link for downloading the latest version of the software. So let's see if we've got any questions here. Any questions at all? Great. Let me just show you some quickly. There's the features. The software looks completely different now. We've got training links in it. It takes you right to the site for showing you how to use certain things. For example, configuring it takes you right into the website so you can actually see information on how to do various topics. And you can search at support.myovision.com on basically anything you want to learn about. So some really great articles in here, and so very valuable way to get information. You can open exams. In the setup, you can even go in and change the EP stress score. You can change how it looks. You can change the colors that are used, the size of it on the display. For eScan, you go into eScan and you can change the message, and you can have it say whatever you want to at the bottom of the eScan itself, and change the font, color, the message they get in their email, change this anytime you want to. We improved also the email part of it in that it works with all different email programs. It also reduces spam now because you put in your personal email address in here instead of the generic one, and then it reduces the probability for spam. As far again as the dynamic range of motion interpretation, if we pull up an exam, you can see now we actually have these graphics showing what the patient's doing, and you can right-click, go to Interpretation Report, and it actually populates the interpretation report for you with all the information on the patient, and you simply select from a drop-down to show you, so you can select what it is that they're actually, what you see on the screen. And that generates a very nice report, which looks really good. And the report itself will actually provide you with something you can send to the attorney right away. You can save it as a PDF. You do need to have Office 2013 or 2010 installed, and here you can see what it looks like. We explain the test, very professional looking, with photographs along with graphs of what normal is, and you simply will select from these drop downs and you select what you see. It also includes the AMA guides as far as the normal range of motion. You select what you see, normal, moderately high, or abnormal, and simply just generate a report. You can also save here your signature in this location and save this into the templates folder, and it'll automatically populate with your personal signature too. So that should do it. Let's see, we've got some questions here. Let's see what this says. Yes, this will, as far as question, if you have a database that goes back to the beginning of time till 1990, we've always been backward compatible, so the question is, will this update old scans with EP score? Yes, it will update all your old scans with EP stress score. So if you have a system for a long time, you'll still be able to see the data. If you have an older system, now this only applies to the 3G wire-free system. We stopped supporting, just like with Microsoft Word from 2000, we stopped supporting the wired system a long time ago. If you're going to upgrade, it's a good idea to do it soon due to the fact that things have changed. But the EP stress score and all the new software you see applies to the wire-free system. So, and yes, this will work with any of the older tests. Now, if you do upgrade and you have an older system that's a wired one, your database will be converted to the new format as part of the upgrade, and you'll be able to continue working with your old tests back to 1996, I believe. So let me see what other questions we have. The cost to add, so those that want to know what it costs to add this and you just bought it last year or 6 months ago, simply fill out that form and they will contact you back with the cost for adding it. It's not that much. If it's new, obviously it's free. If it was recent, the cost will be based on how old it is. And so we'll be sending that information. You just fill out that form at MyoVision.com and they will send you back the pricing. So it's really based on how long you've had the system. See what the questions we have here. Yes, update of old scans. Let's see what else we have. Any other questions? It looks like that's all of our questions. Anybody else? Let's see here. So that should do it. I think we've got all our questions answered. And if there's any other questions, you can email david@myovision.com or support@myovision.com or info@myovision.com. And that should do it for this presentation. Thank you so much for being on. And, you know, utilizing this technology is great. Everybody loves it, and they're going to love you for utilizing it. So thank you again for being MyoVisionaries. I appreciate it greatly.